In today's video, we're gonna be talking about roller shades. So roller shades are one of those products that we get questions about literally every single day. And the reason why is that they are ubiquitous, they're universal. All of the different manufacturers, the over 16 suppliers that we carry, have roller shades as an option. The other reason why roller shades are so popular is because they come in some of the largest spans possible and some of the smallest sizes possible. So it's a very easy product to implement in any type of project. One of the other reasons that we see roller shades being such a popular option is that they work very well for layering. So if we want to use drapery, or if we want to have two different styles of opacity, a light filtering and a blackout material, roller shades are a really great way to do that. Essentially, roller shades come in two different categories to keep things simple. We call them solar rollers or sunscreens and designer rollers or roller shades. So solar rollers versus roller shades. With roller shades, the opacity comes in sheer, semi-sheer, semi-opaque, and blackout. In solar shades, it's actually a percentage openness of the weave, 1%, 3%, 5%, 7%, 10%, and so on. We're gonna show you a few of these different styles and talk about why each opacity is different and how we use them in different projects. So when it comes to roller shade opacities, like I had mentioned, it really just depends on whether it's a solar roller or a designer roller. Again, designer rollers are going to be rated off of sheer, semi-sheer, semi-opaque, and blackout. Now what that means is that materials that are sheer or semi-sheer, you're going to be able to see through them in the daytime, and you're going to have a little bit of daytime privacy, but in the evening there will be almost no privacy. A semi-opaque, like the one behind me here, is going to have that soft glow during the day, provide both daytime and evening privacy, okay? And then a blackout or room darkening shade like this is going to have no light transference through the material of the shade, and we're just going to see the light gaps on the sides of the shade. A blackout material or a room darkening material can also come in a solar roller shade. So that's available in both collections or both categories. Designer solar versus designer roller. So when it comes to solar roller shades, they're rated off a variety of different openness of the weave or the percentage openness. So you have a 0.5%, a 1%, a 3%, a 5%, a 7%, and so on and so forth. Now, with solar roller shades, it's not just the percentage openness of the material, but actually the color that will also affect that privacy, that transference, and that view through as well. So a black 1% and a black 3% are going to be significantly more see-through than a white 1% or a white 3% in the exact same material. The reason for that is that when the sun is hitting the shade on a black or dark gray material, it's being absorbed. When the sun is hitting the shade on a white material, it's being reflected. And that's why we can see through black more than we can see through a white in the exact same fabric and exact same openness. So when we're looking at a solar roller shade, we're not just talking about 1%, 3%, or 5%. We're also considering the color because there is an implication for the project based on the percentage weave openness and the color. Another one of the major benefits of roller shades is they're one of the best products for layering. Layering, or using two different treatments on a window, is something that's very popular nowadays, as drapery and soft goods have made a resurgence in the market because of their ability to add softness, acoustics, and some aesthetics to a space. When it comes to using something behind drapery that's subtle, that's simple, that's functional, and cost-effective, nothing's better than a roller blind. The reason why we like to use roller shades with drapery is it allows us to play with that opacity and determine, do we want a sheer drapery with a blackout roller shade like we're seeing here, a sheer drapery with a semi-opaque roller shade like we're seeing here, or do we flip it and do a blackout drapery with a sheer or a semi-sheer roller shade? The other really nice thing with working on layering with roller shades and drapery is it allows us to have something very soft, very subtle, flat, and simple behind the drapery that's understated and is not drawing away from the fabric. Another thing that's really nice when we're working with roller shades is we can actually do dual rollers where we have two different materials in the same window. So we can do a semi-sheer and then a semi-opaque, or a semi-opaque and then a blackout, and allows us to control the light using two different types of fabrics. What that allows us to do is to mix things up. We can have a blackout or a semi-opaque on the back, and then a sheer or a light filtering material on the front. and we can play around with how much light or how much privacy we're getting in a space based on which of those two layers is up or down. Okay, now when it comes to controlling roller shades or solar shades, depending on what you're doing, there is a few different ways of tackling this. And because we carry so many different brands and there's a lot of different brands on the market, it can be really confusing with all the different systems. To simplify things, we can think about this three ways. We have cordless, new age operators or wand systems, and motorized. With the cordless systems, there's basically two types. You can do what's called neutral balance, where you're just moving the shade up and down with the touch of a finger or your hand, and it's holding its position. A spring system, where it's a tug and release, okay? And you're also gonna have the ability to do a combination between a wand and a neutral balance system with some manufacturers as well. Now with the wand systems, there's basically two styles in that arena as well. There's the motorized version and the manual version. In the manual version, it might be two rods where you're pulling one to bring the shade up, one to bring the shade down, a pump wand where you're pumping the wand to bring it up and down, or like I had mentioned, the motorized wand where there's a button or a slight tug of the shade. And then with the motorized options, not to make this even more complicated, there are a lot of different systems. But again, the easiest way to think about it is it's either gonna be hardwired or battery. And we're gonna be able to control that with a hand remote, a wall remote, or an app from almost every single brand and manufacturer. So there's one other control system that we don't often recommend and bring up, and that's a chain with a shroud. Because of the Health Canada regulations that came into force in effect in 2022, and some of the regulations that are coming into the United States this year, we are no longer allowed to see exposed chain controls. Now with this system, it's a traditional control where you have a loop chain that controls the shade, but there's a shroud that sits over top. So it's not the most aesthetically pleasing, but it is very functional. And we don't typically recommend it because of the look, but it does work well. Another important consideration when we're looking at roller shades as a category is what are the top and the bottom treatment gonna look like? So when it comes to the top treatment, again, regardless of the brand, there's basically a few different ways we can do this. We can have it open roll where there is no top treatment hiding the roller. We can do a cassette, which will typically come in a square or a round profile in a wrapped or an unwrapped finish. We can do a valance, or we can do a metal fascia. When it comes to bottom bars, again, really just depends on the brand, but there's basically an exposed round or an exposed square metal, or a fabric wrap or seamed hem. Of those different styles, it really just depends on the size of the shade and the application, which one's gonna fit best. With the contemporary trend towards roller shades, the most popular style today is probably the fascia or the square cassette for the header, and then the round or square wrap bottom bar for the bottom. So with all the different styles that we explore today, whether that's a designer roller or a solar roller, all the different fabrics, all the different opacities, all the control systems we looked at will impact the project. There's going to be different price points between different brands, different minimums, and different maximums. But at the end of the day, roller shades are by far one of the most versatile products on the market and can fit a variety of projects, a variety of budgets. Let's check out a few styles.